Hello, everyone. This is Mike from Dimensional Walking. And today, what we are going to talk about, or what I'm going to talk about, is Mothman. Mothman. I'm going to tell you some of my impressions of Mothman, some of my own personal experiences with Mothman, and a couple other stories. Anyways, let me give you a little background on Mothman. You know, Mothman has been sighted, a Mothman type creature has been sighted all over the world, okay? Probably going back maybe several hundred years at the very least, maybe even longer. But anyways, in the United States, it seemed to have come from an area in West Virginia. There's a place called Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where in 1966, two couples were driving around outside of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and they came across, it was at night, and they were driving, and they came across a large, very large, kind of a humanoid with bat wings. They looked like big wings, probably a wingspan of 8 to 10 feet. And it was standing in the middle of the road, basically, and it was looking at them with these big red eyes. And it was incredible. They reported it quickly to the authorities. They took down, the authorities spent several hours with them taking down their statements. It was very consistent. And I guess we could probably at that point have blown it off and say, okay, maybe they were younger folks and maybe they're out drinking and just driving around making stories up, right? But what happened thereafter was that in this particular area, there was quite a few other sightings, a couple by volunteer firemen. I think one was by a sheriff's deputy, a couple other people. So, and they were very consistent to the stories of these two couples. So there probably was something to it. There really was. So then about a year later, there's always something they connect to this. There was a few sightings, and then suddenly this big bridge collapsed where 47 people died. So there was always this bridge in the relationship to the Mothman, and that's possibly what made it famous. And as you probably know, there's been movies made about that incident. And, you know, I think it was John Keel. He also wrote some books, and, you know, it got a life of its own, basically. But there have been sightings all over the United States of creatures like this. There's been sightings at O'Hare Field in Chicago more recently. You know, there's just been quite a few sightings. So I personally think there's something to this. I really do. So I'm going to relate a few stories to you. The first one I want to talk about is a story in New Mexico. I lived in New Mexico for probably 13 years. And anyway, so I worked with this guy named John. No, I'm sorry. This is Ron. I worked with a guy named Ron. John was a different experience, but Ron lived in Corrales, which is just outside of, it's like a suburb of Albuquerque. And it's a really cool place. It's down by the Rio Grande River, and he had a house over there. And so he was a smoker, and at night, especially in the summertime, he would go outside because typically, you know, it was a little cooler outside at night, and he would go on his back porch and he would smoke a cigarette, etc. One night, he was doing exactly that, and it was a hot day. I think it was, I don't know if it's July. I think he said it was July. And so he was standing on his porch, and that's my cat in the background there. I don't know what she's up to, but anyways, he was standing on the back porch, and suddenly he felt this kind of warm, hot, well, it's actually pretty hot, he said, air coming kind of above him. So at first he said he didn't think much of it because, you know, being in New Mexico at night, especially being a high desert, there's a lot of like when it's been hot during the day, there's cold air, warm air. It's kind of like you could walk outside and feel a little bit of cool breeze, and then you get this hot breeze. So this was not uncommon to kind of feel this at night. But it came directly from above, which he thought was quite odd. So what he did is he kind of looked his head up, and lo and behold, looking back down on him was this huge head with these huge red eyes. And he was just kind of startled right there. And he just stood there for a minute looking at these big red eyes. And this thing is breathing down his hot air, right? Wow. Anyways, suddenly this thing takes off, and it makes this huge noise and like creates this kind of wind as it's taking off, and it flies off. Actually, I believe it. He had a couple big trees, if I remember, in his backyard, and he said it landed on one of these big trees. It was a water oak tree because they were close to the river. And so it landed on that and just kind of stood there for a while. And of course, he couldn't see it very well because it was dark, but he could kind of every so often catch a little bit of that red eye going on there. And eventually it flew off. But he said he'll never forget it. It was a crazy event that happened to him. Now, I must tell you, around the Rio Grande River, there was a lot of weird experiences that go on, a lot of skinwalker type things. And in this particular case, I believe it was a Mothman that he saw. He said he never saw, he did say he did see a object or a figure in the same tree years later, but that was it. He didn't have any other experiences, but he said he'd never forget it. Okay, so that's New Mexico. Then we're going to go to Utah. This was my own personal experience I had in Utah with something that could be like a Mothman, but let me explain it to you. So I was on my deck. This is daylight now. I was on my deck and I was drinking a cup of coffee, and I was just kind of looking out at a beautiful view from the deck. I was looking out, and all of a sudden I noticed a huge shadow of looked like a big bird had flown over me. And so I kind of looked up, and I really didn't see anything initially. Okay. And then I kept on drinking my coffee and just enjoying the scenery. And suddenly I saw another big bird. And this big bird, I looked up and I caught kind of the back of it, and it looked like it had these huge, almost bat-like wings. It wasn't like a regular big bird. It was bat-like wings. And I that's all I heard. And then suddenly I got this big 5-gallon bucket, I'll call it, of bird shit, basically, or some kind of shit that hit the side of the house. And this stuff is steaming. It smells. It's awful. I don't know what else to tell you. It took me a long time to get it cleaned off the house, but it was a lot. So whatever kind of creature was flying overhead, that's what it probably felt about me. That's what it was trying to say, something about me with a bucket of what. So anyways, that was my experience. I can't tell you for absolutely sure it was a Mothman. It was a huge, big bird of some sort. But because the wings were sort of like kind of more bat wings than bird wings, I have a feeling maybe it was a Mothman. There was other stories up in the area we lived in that was in Parley Summit, which, if anybody knows Utah, that's just outside of Park City. And it's at, probably 8,000 feet or so. And there was other people had mentioned that they had seen large birds, sky type things going on up there, and they were bigger than, bald eagles or other type of birds. So something was going on up there, no doubt about it. Okay, so that was Utah. So let's go now to Oregon. Okay, so Oregon, lived here about 5 years now. And there's been sightings of something south of us, south of where we lived in Oregon. And there seems to be there's been several sightings and kind of legends, etc. And from an area from, let's say, Pacific City, which would be a line kind of going northwest to southeast. So it's Pacific City. I'll give you some of the towns: Pacific City, Amity, Mount Parrott, and Newburgh. That's in the Newburgh area. And then let's see what else. Let me look at my notes here. Oh, Mount Angel and Scotts Mills. And beyond Scotts Mills is the start of the Cascade Mountains. Okay. So in that kind of region or line, there's been some of these interesting sightings. Okay. I'm going to tell you one sighting. This was a bit of a famous one. This was a nurse. She worked in Amity, Oregon. Okay. And she lived in Silverton, which is about 33 miles. And if you drive it at night, these roads are pretty small roads. They're no super highways or anything like that. So they're dark. They're dark roads, and you're driving down there, and it's, if you're not thinking about it, it's fine. But if you start looking around and kind of seeing what you see, the trees, etc., there could be sometimes you could be concerned, especially if it's fairly late at night. So anyways, this woman, and it's about 15 years ago. About 15 years ago. And she was driving home from her job in Amity. And suddenly she was driving along this road and she sees a figure. Now, at first she thought it was just a person kind of huddled over, kind of off to the side of the road. And so she slowed down. And then this thing kind of hopped into the middle of the road and kind of like right in front of her. And she stopped. I don't think she slammed on brakes, she said, but she stopped. And this thing looked at her, and it was huge. It was huge. And it kind of, I want to say it spread, I think she said it kind of spread its wings so you could see how big it was. Didn't open the wings up completely, but you could tell they were huge. And then what really started her were these two red round eyes that were looking at her and seemed to be illuminated. She thought at first maybe it was that it was her headlights reflecting off of them, but then she said no, they almost looked like they were actually giving off light, which was really odd, she said. Well, she had stopped, and she kind of like a little freaked because this thing was starting to move towards her. And I think she said she was probably 20, 25 feet away at this point. And this thing started kind of creeping towards her, and she freaked. And she probably would have rather have gone backwards, but she said, heck with it. She was going to go towards it and see if she could get around it. Well, this thing kind of hopped a little bit back and forth, and she really couldn't. So she actually believed she hit it, and it kind of like tumbled off to the side of the road. And she just took off. She didn't want to have anything to do with it. And what she said later is she said that it really, I think there was a couple movies out, Jeepers Creepers, and she said to her, that's what it looked like. It kind of looked like a big Jeepers Creepers. And so anyways, that was the big story I can get out of Oregon. Now, let's back up a minute. One of the other places, there was a more recent story, I believe it's related to the Mothman, there was a place called Mount Parrott, and it's over by Newburgh. It's actually east of Newburgh. It's a big hill. It's not a mountain, but it's this huge hill, and it's a beautiful place. Rainbow and I drive up it all the time just to drive around. It's just gorgeous up there. It has a lot of vineyards. It just got beautiful views. It's got beautiful homes up there. It's a pretty exclusive place up there. So we just drive around. So anyways, up in that area, about 2 years ago, there was a story about some horses up there. Now they have a lot of, this part of Oregon has a lot of horse ranches. So there's also horse ranches up on this mountain, or big hill, as I call it. And anyway, so this, the story goes that something, and some of the stories seem to imply there was something in the sky, like a bird or something big they had saw, maybe shadows again. Maybe it wasn't actually looking at the bird. But anyways, shortly after those sightings, these two horses ended up with these huge scratches on their back, like something either jumped on their back and scratched them, or was running next to them and scratched them. we're really not sure, but they were pretty puzzling because the vets didn't seem to know what it was. They eliminated a lot of things. There really isn't any mountain lions over in that particular area. There's coyotes, and there's I don't think there's any wolves over there, but it's mainly coyotes. But coyotes just wouldn't do that. It wouldn't make any sense. So something really strange happened, and that's in line again with that line I was talking about. So anyways, the other thing is Rainbow and I had several times taken at night, we went and kind of traced back this route that this woman had taken from Amity all the way over to Silverton. And some of the roads on that route we would drive down, and we do it at night about the same time. It was pretty late at night we'd do it. And so we get the same effect. And then I would go out, we'd stop periodically and get out of the car, and we'd take pictures of everything. A couple times, I have to tell you, I really had a feeling that something was going to drop out of the sky and confront me. I really had that feeling. I didn't see anything. The only thing I did see is some dark, shadowy stuff up in the trees. Now, I didn't get a good photo of that at all, but I definitely got it. It was pretty incredible. At least the feeling, and it was a creepy feeling. I'm not gonna kid you. It was very creepy. That's my cat again, so it's nothing that crazy. Anyways, so we do this route, and it was pretty exciting. We actually had gotten quite a few UFOs taking photos, or kind of random photos of the sky and all around. Hopefully we'd pick up a Mothman or something up there, but we did get a lot of UFOs, so that was pretty cool. But anyways, that was really it. And what my conclusion is, there is probably something south of us here. There is probably a Mothman or something that is moving between those areas that I spoke about. One of the things that is very common in these areas, and also other areas like out in West Virginia, is these huge oak trees, basically that could support a huge creature sitting up in a large branch. And all the way through this area, like in Mount Angel, for instance, let me tell you about Mount Angel. Mount Angel, there's a beautiful monastery there, a Catholic monastery up on this hill. And if you're ever in this part of Oregon, between Salem and Portland, go to this monastery at Mount Angel. It's absolutely incredible place. And they own like this whole hill. We'll call it kind of like a holy hill. And they own this hill. And that's where this monastery is. And it's got these beautiful, gigantic oak trees in it, predominantly oak trees. And anyways, it seems like this creature loves this area with these deciduous oak trees in it. And I sort of noticed in other areas where they've been spotted also that the oak trees seem to be a common denominator. So anyways, that's it for now. I believe Mothman is a real thing, and keep your eyes in the sky. It doesn't seem like it's, eating people or anything strange. It may pick up a few, animals or some farm animals or something. There's been some talk about that. But anyways, that's it. Thanks for listening. If you like us, please subscribe. If you have any comments, comment here, or go ahead and send us a private email at dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. And take it easy and happy trails until we see you again. Bye-bye.